And is it Evelyn or Evelyn? And if people would like to come on camera, that would be great. If not, because you're doing other things, that's fine too. We're very excited and grateful that you joined us, and people will be popping into the waiting room, and we'll keep on letting people come in as they arrive. We have one right now. And so if people wanted to pop into the chat, where you're from, what role you play in education, that would be great. Get to know you a little bit. And so, David, I'm wondering, while we're waiting for people to come in, what's been new in your world? Any fun and exciting things since the last time we were on?
It's been super busy. I think as far as the site goes and everything, and this happened last night, actually, which is, I'm glad that we're talking today, is that the principal's desk actually just hit 150,000 members, and that happened last night, which was amazing. It's funny, my wife and I are sitting on the couch watching TV, and my wife goes through the site like all the time because she's vested in it as well, and she's like, "You're going to hit 150 tonight." I'm like, "I know," because I look at it all the time too, and I'm in there like all day long, and we're literally sitting on the couch, and she's like, "You just hit it." And so like, yeah, I went and I posted something in the group and everything, and yeah, it's pretty amazing, just the amount of folks that are in here. And I do some work with a brand new principal in Southern California, and he was saying, because I said, "Hey, why don't you go check out the group?" And lots of ideas and just like-minded folks that are on there. And so I was talking with him the other day, and he was saying like how amazing it is. Like, he gets all his questions answered. He doesn't even have to actually ask the questions. Like, everything is just there. And I was like, awesome. Like, that's what it's for. So it's just like nice feedback, that not only is he enjoying the site, but just getting a lot of information from it as a new principal, because it's so hard. But yeah, I mean, it's been great.
And how long has it been? What's the birthday?
Oh, 2016, I think, is when I launched it. But I'd say in the last year, we've grown over 100,000. Like, it's been just in this past year, it's been exploding all over the place. And the last I checked as well, we represent every country in the world except for 9. There are 9 countries that are not represented in the principal's desk, and honestly, I don't think they have social media in these countries. And so it's pretty amazing when I do have a map. And actually, I was going to be releasing a map and having folks kind of indicate where in the world they're from. That's going to be in the group here probably early next week. And it's amazing. Just, I see folks popping in from just all over the world. And I get emails all the time from folks in places. I'm like, wow, like, it's pretty incredible. Like, when you think about like what we're able to do, and how we can interact with folks in places that I never thought I'd be interacting with folks in. So it's pretty amazing.
And to that point, David, Sherry Daniels, she's coming from Orange County in California. She's an assistant principal. And Kim Ribicki is here with us today. I hope I said that right, Kim. She's starting a new position as assistant principal in July in Morris, Illinois.
Congratulations.
And Sarah is a retired public educator in Pennsylvania, and she has tells us a bit about herself in her in the Zoom links, in the Zoom chats. And anyone else joining, if you could pop in who you are, where you're coming from, what your role is, we'd love to get to know you all a little more.
And Sherry, were you on last time? No, you weren't. Okay. For some reason, you look a little familiar to me. Yeah. I wonder if we've been on a webinar before.
It's possible. No, I just joined the group maybe 2 or 3 months ago, and it's an incredible resource. I'm loving it. So thank you guys so much.
Good. Glad to hear
Yeah,
it.
congratulations on the 150,000. That's
Thank
amazing.
you. Yeah, thank you. It's really strange. Like you know, but I keep hearing how like helpful it is. And that was really the genesis of it, is that I wanted to be helpful because I would have loved it when I was a principal or really starting out my career, which Facebook really didn't. It existed, but it wasn't like it is now. But when you're a principal, like you don't have a whole lot. You might not have a lot of places to turn to, and so I'm glad that this is being helpful to folks. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually am really hoping along the way I can connect a little bit more on a smaller scale with some of the people in the group, just because sometimes there's more sensitive questions that you'd like to ask that, like in my situation, I'm not willing to put out there on a public forum. So I don't know how to do that, or if you've thought about going that way, but anyway, that was something that was on my mind.
No, that's great. And I actually have, and here, I'll give you one thing you can do like immediately if you wanted to. And I do have individuals reaching out to me all the time. Basically what you just said, like, I have a question, but I don't necessarily want my name attached to the question because it is sensitive. And with 150,000 educators in the group, like, you never know who knows. Like, I mean, chances are there are people personally in your district in it. So what some people will do is that they take out any information that might identify where the post is coming from, but they'll send it to me and I will post under my name. And I say, this is from someone who wants to remain anonymous. They have a question, and then here it is. And then you just have to make sure you're following the responses because you're not tagged in there at all. But I can do that. But then the other thing is I am going to be launching here probably in the next little bit ways that smaller groups can get together and just kind of have those ideas kind of flow, not in the big group, but almost like little mini support groups, if you will, that might meet on a monthly basis, that could, again, not in the main forum, but just, here we are, just maybe there's 10, 12 of us getting together for an hour, the first Wednesday of every month, and saying, hey, I've got questions, and just kind of roundtable everything.
Gotcha. That's a great idea.
And what was it? I believe Sarah had said in the chat that there is a feature to make people post anonymously in groups. So maybe there's a setting that we can play around with. Sarah, you came off a mute. Do you know how to access that?
Yeah, it's probably in your group admin settings, but I know as a group member, I've been able to post anonymously, especially teachers groups, for that exact reason. So you might be able to add that. So when people go to post, they have the option. Nice.
I'll have to explore that too.
Thank you, Sarah. And Galina says that she's coming from Florida. She's an intern principal. Let's say AJ is from New Jersey and started as an assistant principal during the pandemic. He's coming in just at year 2 right now at a middle school. So yeah. A big part of why we're doing these Facebook Lives is to connect people more personally and to be able to be resources for each other. So if you are able to come off of camera, that really helps with the engagement piece. We connect with each other more as human beings. And as we learned through the pandemic, of course, Zoom has been a blessing and a curse at the same time. And we find that as many times as we can get our faces, but if that doesn't work for you today, for whatever reason, we understand that too. But if it's possible, we'd love to see your beautiful face and your shiny smile.
Now, David, you had said, and this keeps on playing in my mind, you said that one of the reasons why, or the main reason why you decided to create the principal desk was to bring together like-minded people. And you think that that's part of the reason why it's really been taking off recently. So like-minded, that's like a really important question. Like, what do you think is the like-mindedness of the principal's desk?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, you know, and I think we talked a little bit about this at our last Facebook Live event, and because you asked me why I created it, you know, in the first place. And really it was created so that I wanted to post my own stuff. And in kind of growing it, everyone started posting it, and it was great, and just kind of grew from there. And I didn't see a lot of like educator principal groups that really kind of addressed what I thought were like the main kind of day-to-day issues that happen in the school site. What I love about our group is that the questions and the posts in there are those day-to-day, like, I have a parent screaming at me because I took, you know, their son's cell phone. How do I handle this? And that might seem like a very small, like a tiny little question, but like, honestly, I dealt with that all the time. And I was yelled at all the time. And these are the things that like we deal with as administrators, and teachers as well, like deal with this all the time. So, and these are like the nuts and bolts and those real tangibles. Yes, we can have these larger, you know, philosophical conversations where we think education should be headed and what's wrong with the system. And that's important too. But what I love about it is like, how do I deal with this? And this is the issue that got dumped on me today, and I have to solve it by tomorrow. What do? I see that post all the time. And I see it from teachers, from a structural standpoint, but also I see it, and I love it when teachers feel brave enough to post these. It's like, I'm having an issue with my admin. I need help in like talking through this and to figure it out. And again, to feel comfortable in putting that out there, I think is really, it's something, and it's a resource that's out there. Because sometimes, again, you know, I think I mentioned this last time, when you are, I'd say, especially a principal, there's no one else sometimes to talk to. Sometimes you're the only admin in your building. That was me when I was an assistant or a elementary school principal. I was it. And there's no one else to ask. And yeah, you can call downtown, but sometimes they don't pick up the phone. And you got to solve that problem like kind of now. I've had people on the site post during the school day, I have a parent coming in an hour. How do I deal with this? And it's amazing. And then they'll get like 30 different responses. And then, you know, the result is like, thanks so much. Like, I'm armed with like, you know, some tools that I can use to diffuse the situation or to help the child or whatever it is. And it's really in the moment. And because we have so many people on there, it really is like almost instantaneous feedback and support that you're not going to get. And I just think that those tangibles and those real world situations, I think, is what makes this group so special.
You know what else I'm hearing, David, is people supporting each other and uplifting each other, you know, and telling stories where it's like, oh, well, that doesn't happen to just me. I'm not alone. And so they're, you know, not feeling so isolated, because as an administrator at a school, being the only assistant principal or being the only principal can feel very isolating, right? And sometimes there's a lot of division going on between, you know, the different demographics of the school and that one leader. And that's a hard place to be. So to be able to connect with others and really support and uplift, I've seen a couple of stories that were just like very heartwarming. You know, and it's like, oh, and this is why we do what we do. And I've seen some other stories that are just downright hilarious, like, like these situations that come up, and it's like, you couldn't make that up. Yeah. That's just some crazy stuff. And it makes us all laugh. So that's another wonderful, you know, outcome of having this group. And another reason that we're talking about getting us together more often on a more connected level like this, and with our upcoming conference in June, and having our participants here and on Facebook help us design that and build it with what you're interested in, so that we can keep those conversations really going.
Absolutely. You know, it's funny you bring that up about like the stories and everything, because I said it right at the beginning, my wife is an admin in the group too, and she's not an educator, she just kind of helps keep it together for me. And she heard me for years talk about all the things that happened when I was a principal, and she's like, come on, like that's not real. And then when she goes through this group, she's like, oh, like everyone deals with this stuff. I'm like, yes, like no one, the stuff that we deal with is just people don't realize, like, no, that actually happens. And I have it on all ends of the spectrum, like the stuff that I had to deal with, and, you know, some good, some bad, some scary, some hilarious. And it's like, this is our job. This is what really happens. And you know, it's great to see others sharing the same stories and helping each other out. And, you know, I see all the time, hey, I just dealt with that same thing 2 weeks ago. This is how I solved it, or this is what I did. And hey, don't do what I did because it didn't work. And it's great. It's just, it's great to kind of see those resolutions and people getting the support they need.
Well, to me, you know, I've been teaching for 22 years. I started my master's in educational leadership before my daughter was born, and now she's almost 17. So I had done most of my coursework. I just needed to do the practicum. And someone said, I think that they're doing their internship right now. I guess depending upon where you're from, it's called different things. There's no way I could have done all of this while I had a newborn. So things kind of happened for a reason. I decided to come back and complete it. And what I like about the principal's desk is it's almost like a fly on the wall type of education of, you know, a day in the life, a week in the life, a month in the life of a principal. You see so many different questions. You learn a lot by what people are asking and how people are weighing in. You start to learn that there are different ways to solve a problem. Not everyone agrees on the same way to go about doing something. There's positives, there's negatives. And I think what happens a lot of times is there's not a whole lot of opportunities to have these authentic, organic conversations with teachers and admin. And so what happens is we tend to just kind of fill in the blanks and make up stuff, and it may or may not be true. So I think the potential for this community you've created is to create better relationships really among the different stakeholders. So that's really exciting. And I think that that's a great way to segue even into the conference and the vision for the conference. So would you like to speak a little bit to that, David?
Yeah, I think we do have something that's really great going on here, and just to take that further in kind of the realm of you know, additional support, and to hear folks that have been there in the, you know, in those situations, both on a kind of a ground floor level, but then also some folks that you know, that have seen it, and then also been able to share that journey with folks around the country. We're talking with some folks whose names that everyone will recognize, that can be, you know, potentially, you know, working out some final details, speaking at this conference to share out those details. But we've been also asking folks in the site, like, what do you want to see? What are your major topics? Like, what do you need Senate supporting? So we want to design this around what everybody wants. We've all been to conferences where you're like, yeah, okay, like that's great, but like that's not necessarily what I asked for or wanted to see. And then we want this to be just very different. We want it to be organic. We want all those ideas to come from folks in the group. So that's, we've been asking. We've gotten several hundred responses back on some surveys. I'm getting a ton of different responses back on call for presenters. And it's been amazing. I see you got a Wordle up there. Is this what this is, the Wordle from the surveys?
Yeah. So David, Jennifer,
cool.
this is one of her her expertise. She's really good at this. She takes information and she'll synthesize it and figure out, you know, like what's the pattern here. And so she put this together. Jen, do you want to talk about it a little bit? You're on mute, love.
Sorry. So when I looked at it and I started to theme it out, I was trying to reduce it into like the most basic topics. And let me just, I'm full screen, so let me get off of the full screen. And so when we're looking at this, I saw about 4 or 5 different topics, and I'm wondering, before I share what I came up with, maybe we should just allow people to come off mute. And what are you seeing when I copied and paste this into the word cloud? Do you want to keep it on up there, Heidi, please? Please and thank you. Ron Swanson. So when you're looking at this, if you were to theme these out, what like couple of words might encapsulate some of these? Are we seeing some topics? Feel free to come off of mute.
I'm looking at management because that one got my attention.
Okay, and so when you think of management as far as managing the school building, managing your faculty, managing resources,
Right, all of the above, and making it cohesive where everyone's getting along. So seems quite tricky.
that's great. And what I love is I see the word management or managing, it's smaller, but it like ties in all these other ones. Anybody else seeing a topic that
So-
might bring in some others?
A couple popped out to me: pandemic management and culture. And for me, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, is I'm seeing such a dramatic change in our culture because of the impact of the pandemic, and it hasn't been a very good impact. And so how do we not rewind, but how do we recover our culture when the resources that are needed on a social emotional level are so dramatic? And a lot of people, I think, are in denial of the need of our teachers and of our students. They're not recognizing the level of need. Therefore, we're not getting the resources, or people aren't willing to avail themselves of the resources. So I don't know if that really answered the question, but that's what popped out.
Yeah, and Sherry, to piggyback on that, I see some words that are larger on this Wordle: education, school, learning, students, teachers, leadership, students, teacher, staff, teaching. And so for me, it's all about teaching and learning. That's what I'm hearing are the two biggest things. And I think it ties into exactly what you said with the culture and how are we doing things today in 2022, coming up on the 22-23 school year, for what fits what's needed right now and not what we used to do. Because teaching and learning is different today than it was before.
You know,
And go ahead,
Oh.
please go. Andre?
Oh, I was just gonna say, the teacher, teaching and staff, that all kept coming up for me too. But I think, as you were saying, the problem is we as administrators, our job is to teach teachers at the end of the day. I think that's where our focus needs to be. We as administrators need to, we need to learn. We need to figure out what it is that needs to be different. Because something definitely needs to be different. A lot of us are trying to come back into the school year doing exactly what we did 2 years ago, and that's not what's going to work. So, us as administrators, we have to learn more, and we have to teach teachers to be different in their classrooms.
Absolutely.
I would like to respond to that as a teacher. I think that when it comes to our classrooms, teachers have the most intimate knowledge of what they need. And so I don't necessarily, I know as a teacher, I don't feel like what I wanted from my principal was to be taught by my principal. What I wanted from my principal was to be supported. What I wanted from my principal was to be heard and to be given autonomy and to be given the resources and the opportunities that I needed to be able to do the things that I, as a teacher, as an expert of my classroom, knew that was best, if that makes sense. And so I understand what you mean by teaching teachers, and at the same time, what I really would have preferred was a collaborative relationship with my administration, because I think it would have been best for both of us.
So I'm
Mhm.
loving this conversation that's happening right now, because it's pointing out that it's not one or the other. It's and. It's a yes and. Both are true. There are some teachers who need that support and need to continue to be taught a little bit more and show them the ropes and get their feet under them when they're newer until they're able to go off on their own and then do exactly what you're saying, Sarah. And there are other teachers who come out the gate ready to go, right? I've seen some amazing teachers come right out the gate. And as far as being an administrator, knowing how to navigate that and support your teachers, which then support your students too. Because when teachers are teaching authentically from who they are and from their best place, those kids are going to pick up on the learning so much more. They'll be much more engaged. They'll have deeper connections with their teachers. If teachers are teaching in a way that's very forced and unlike them, then you're going to create tension in that classroom. So I think both are true. And I love that we can have these conversations and not get all heated about, oh, you're right, no, I'm right. And, you know, because that's what tends to happen. And that's part of what the principal's desk is all about. Like, let's voice it. Let's get it out. Let's talk about it. Let's dialogue it and pick and choose what works for you and your community, because not every school is the same either. Just as every teacher and every classroom isn't the same, every school isn't the same. So being able to bounce off ideas and build it the way you need to is great. So thank you for bringing up this conversation.
I had put up my hand because I was thinking being taught different things. I know what I was thinking of is like communicating, like, please teach me what you're dealing with as an administrator. Or I spend a lot of mental energy being creative, coming up with student-centered things. And if you could just tell me, like, what are you looking for this year when you are doing walkthroughs? Please teach me about your focus for this school year and what your goals are. Or please teach me about what you're doing as an administrator and your frustrations with central office, because that's one thing that I've learned right now is that I was presuming that the principal had a lot of control in the building, and that I was learning is not necessarily the case, where it's waiting for a lot of directives from central maybe, or, you know, so that's what I would love to be taught as a teacher, is to just learn more about that principal role.
You know,
David?
I agree. And I was, you know, and I'm glad Sarah mentioned that, because, you know, actually what Sarah is mentioning, that's what I try to do. When I look at, you know, it's try to be more collaborative. When I say teach teachers, it leads to what Jennifer's talking about. I spend a lot of my time going around to each one of my teachers. I see some teachers doing one thing, other teachers doing others, and I bring that perspective. What I try to do when I say teach, that's what I mean. I try to bring that perspective to other teachers. Hey, this is what I saw in this person's classroom. This is what I saw in another person's classroom. This is how it's affecting me. You're right, Jennifer. I spent a lot of time with my team explaining to them, you know, how it is affecting me, and they tend to understand. So, you know, it makes my job easier most of the time because they understand what I'm going through. But, you know, but that's exactly what I mean. You know, we have to be able to have those conversations. Because of that, I actually had a teacher recommend being able to go and see these other teachers and how do we deal with that. So, you know, I started doing a tag out where I would go in and actually teach for that teacher so they can go and observe whoever they wanted to observe. And then they would come back and tell me what they saw. And then I shared what they saw with everyone. So that's what I mean by teach teachers, not necessarily me just telling you what to do, but, you know, having that collaborative.
There's a comment on the Facebook group right now on the live from Ryan Thompson. He says, how can we define the difference between culture and climate in the 22-23 school year?
I can throw my hat in that one, because that's actually part of one of the presentations that I give is defining culture and climate. So climate and again, I'll say that this is how I define it. And I'm definitely not, I'm not the dictionary in this. And so, like, take this for what it is, but climate is that short term. Climate is like the day-to-day, you know, how everyone feels. I mean, people feel much better on, randomly I throw that's like payday. Everyone feels better on payday or on a Friday afternoon. I know I did. On a Friday afternoon, that bell rings. Kids are going out for the weekend. I'm kind of finishing up my stuff and I'm getting ready to have a nice weekend as well. I feel better. That's the climate. Everyone's happy. Climate's good. Culture is that long sustaining feeling on a school. And you know that when you walk onto a school campus, and I tell, teachers and administrators this, when I work with them, when I get out of my car and I step foot in our school campus, how do I feel? It's the vibe that you get, and that's overarching. That's sustains, and that's felt in every classroom at the school. That's felt when you meet every teacher, every administrator, every staff member, students. You feel that culture. It's what's on the walls. It's how the school looks. It's that long-term piece. The climate is that day to day or week to week. The climate is the easiest thing to change. Because it's short-term. Culture is a whole lot harder. And the two schools I was a principal at, that was like the biggest thing that I had to deal with is coming in and changing the culture of a school. I was at it was a more of an urban school, and just really, it was a tough neighborhood. It had gone through a lot of unrest over the years here. There were a lot of drugs, a lot of gangs, a lot of violence in the community, and therefore the school, the teachers were tired, and there was a lot of turnover. It was hard. There was not a supportive culture there at all, and we had to change that. We had to change the perspective, and that was a 5-year long process for me. The culture, the climate stuff, that was tossed out little things all the time. The culture was that collaborative piece that Sarah was talking about. It's acknowledging when things aren't right. It's acknowledging when, hey, I don't know what to do. Does anyone want to take the lead on this? Because I don't have all the answers. I was very good at that. I was very good at saying, I am not like the end all be all as far as school knowledge goes. We're going to work on this together, and I'm going to be the lead on some things, but I'm not going to be the lead on everything. I need everyone to step up, and everyone's going to take a turn. And I had some of my most entrenched, unhappy veteran teachers come out and say, this is what we've wanted. We've wanted a seat at the table. We've wanted to be able to change the culture for the way that we want to. And that's how we move forward. And when we did that, we brought parents in, we brought kids in, we had those authentic, real conversations. That's when things started to change. And not that test scores are they don't always indicate, good school versus a not good school. I can say though that our test scores did skyrocket because our attendance went up, our student discipline rates went down, kids wanted to be at our school, teachers were happy, teachers missed less days as well. Kids wanted to be there. They didn't want to miss out. They didn't want to misbehave and get in trouble because they didn't want to miss out on whatever was going on in the classroom. And that's how we changed a lot of different things. And my elementary school was very similar, but there's just things that you can start to affect. But you got to be. It's the long game. It's not short term. It's a long haul, but it can be done. But it is a very collaborative approach.
So I had put in the chat, it's almost like short-term versus long-term, where like moods can change very quickly, but people's inherent personality traits might be a little bit more fixed. So like some of the core values and guiding principles, and one thing, those things that no matter how much things may change around us, these will continue to remain constant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's those constant, it's those non-negotiables. And that's what a lot of what I did at the middle school, it was really surrounded about two things. It was surrounded around school discipline and instruction, those two things. And the teachers felt, and they got me from day one. They said, there's a lot of things that are out of control and we're not supported by administration. So we had to sit down and let's devise our discipline matrix together here. Why are kids misbehaving? We did a lot of root cause analysis, and it came back. It was a couple of different things. Number one is that there were not clear rules or expectations for our students at the school site. So we had to redraw those up. There was the other side of it, was the instructional side of it, was that a lot of the instruction that was happening at the time was not super engaging. So students would get off task and start misbehaving. We needed to fix both sides of that. a lot of teachers didn't like the instructional piece because they felt like it was all the other side. But I said, look, we're going to work on both these together. And you have my 100% support, and we saw like I said, our disciplinary rates of students being sent to the office and suspensions went from, I'm going back many years, I want to say 500 days of suspension, which is a lot, down to about 150 in about 2 years. And again, it was still too much, but we saw a drastic decrease. But we got behind these two initiatives and we really moved it forward here. And again, kids didn't want to miss out. And that's what the big thing was. The other thing too, is that when kids got sent to me, they didn't want to come into my office because they knew I wasn't going to, the punishment, based off of our matrix was one thing. It was more the disappointment that I would express to them. They would come in and you'd just be like, oh no. And their heads would be down, not because they were going to get in trouble, but because it'd be like, what are you doing? We talked about this. And it's just like they knew. And that was the big change. And then teachers also naturally were doing this as well. The teacher in the classroom is their biggest point of contact. It's the person, like Sarah was saying at the beginning, they know their classroom the best. And like when teachers made that shift too, and it's like the kids didn't want to disappoint the teachers. I mean, that it just again changed so much. The teacher had so much power in that. And then if they did get sent to me, it was the same thing, but I just laid it on much thicker because I could. Because I had the time to do it. The teachers got another 30 kids in the classroom. But for me, I was like, I'm so disappointed. And I'd be like, I'm sorry, Dr. Franklin. But it was great because I said, the next time you get sent to me, like, come on. I don't want to have to call your mom and your grandma and your aunt. And because they all would come and see me and be like, I don't want to disappoint them. Don't make me make that phone call. And they're like, please don't call, and be like, I made the call because I wanted to support the teacher at the same time. And just, hey, like we just are all on the same page. And that's what made it, get a lot of changes.
So Heidi had, sometimes we'd have conversations behind the scenes to make sure that we're hitting all the bases. And so she said, because we're big in transparency, right? So she said, I think that should be a discussion or a panel or something for the conference, because it's coming up, like before you know it, it's June. Did we reveal the dates?
No, I don't.
Would you like to talk?
Doing it right now. Reveal it, Jen.
Go for it, David.
I don't know where you are on Zoom, but I'm happy to do. So it's going to be June 20th and June 21st. It's of course virtual. It's going to be from, I just want to make sure I get the times right here. It's going to be from 8 to 2 Pacific Standard Time. So if you're on the East Coast, it's going to be shifted a little bit later, obviously starting at 11, but 8 o'clock Pacific time. And to go to about 2 o'clock, there's going to be, like I said at the beginning, we're going to have some keynote speakers, and these are going to be folks that you've hopefully heard of, and if not, you're going to want to follow them afterwards. But we're also going to have about 2 speakers per hour, and those speakers are going to come from our group. And I've had a lot of interest in folks, emailing me and messaging me on Facebook saying, "Hey, we'd love to present here." And so I'm actually going to put this link in the chat if you are interested. There's the link. You can put in it's the call for presenters. It goes to the website, put in to present. If you'd like to, we're going to close that call for presenters probably in the next week or two. There we go. And this goes directly to me. You can always direct message me as well if you know some follow-up or whatever it is. But I always feel like the experts in the room are already in the room. And based off of what I see, in our group here, that's what's important. And then based off of what, everything that was in our survey, it's like we have all the answers within our group. And that's who I want speaking and having those conversations with. And so I'm really, really excited about this. So June 20th, June 21st, put in for your call for presenters. You're going to see this in the group over the next week or two a lot. I know it's been in there a bunch, a lot of interest. So please get your presentations in.
And I always learn by making associations. So that's a Monday and a Tuesday. It's the day after Thanksgiving. What am I talking about?
Mother's
The
Day.
day after Father's
The day
Day.
after we thank fathers.
Right, right. And so, thinking that on the weekends, people are away. So it makes sense to have it on a Monday and a Tuesday. And Heidi and I have been, we had reached out to David. Was it back in November?
I think it
I
was
think I reached
November.
out to say, like, we've been following this group and engaging with this group, and let's make it more of a social event and this results oriented conference. And we're very excited to have something like this because it'll give people the opportunity to process the past year, process the past couple of years, because we have been having to pivot and do things so differently, and to start to set intentions for next year, to do some design thinking around what we would love to see in the future of education in general, education within our building, creating that climate and culture, David, that you were talking about, that everyone wants for the students and everyone who serves the students and shapes the students and all stakeholders. So we're going to make sure that it's engaging. We've done these types of events in the past, but nothing quite like this, where there are so many different hats that people are wearing within this community. Heidi, did you want to speak at all? Did I leave anything out, or?
We've also never done it quite to the extent of really having our participants build it. And that's, to me, that's really exciting and fun. Because, I'm finding that the topics in education seem to be like popcorn. They change every 5 minutes. And the reality is, whatever issue was happening 5 minutes ago hasn't been resolved, and then the next one pops up. So it's really hard to pinpoint it, but to be able to talk to our participants in the principal's desk and have them presenting on what they know best and what they know is needed right now, and also having you all filling out the survey that we put out a while back, and these conversations here just showing us what is needed right at this moment is fantastic. So it's going to be a very timely conference, and I'm excited to hear more.
And the fact that it is being still we know what we're doing, we know how to do it, but the specifics, because we are still in that stage, wondering, and there are people here right now thinking about June 20th and 21st and waving this, magic wand, or going into this time travel where it's been a week since we had this conference where people all came together. How could you see yourself benefiting from something like this? What outcome would you love most? What topics or nuggets of wisdom could you imagine gleaning from this Principal's Desk conference? And so if you feel free to come off of mute, and what would be your biggest wish or desire for this conference after having attended it? Sherry, your district doesn't start until after Labor Day, and you're not too happy about that? Do you want to speak to that?
She's still going to be in session June 20th and 21st. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I read that wrong.
It's a long school year.
Long school year.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, I think you muted, Sherry.
Oh, sorry. There you go.
There you go.
So yeah, start late or start early. The length of the year is the same. But being an elementary district, they haven't aligned to the high schools where they're going to be kind of on the college schedule yet. So yes, while all of you guys are on summer, that's my last week for the school year. So yay.
We'll have to figure out how to best do that. I know that we are going to be having registration for the conference. That should be coming up shortly. Definitely by the end of May, we'll have that ready to go. And those who are registered will be able to come into the conference, but we'll have to figure out a way to find a recording for those who have registered and cannot attend.
Yes, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we
that
can.
was hi. Yes, that was my question. Actually, we have summer school, so I'm not gonna have one day off.
We will figure out how to record and get those recordings to you. And then, yeah, based off of if you know, I'm assuming a lot of other folks are going to be in their same position here, is that maybe we can offer some sort of kind of asynchronous information as well that can get to you to support you since you'll be working with summer school. So we'll definitely be sharing that out as we get closer to the event.
Yes, and to answer the previous question, what is the outcome that I will be looking forward? Is basically practical, hands-on ideas and like best practices that we can just learn and implement the following day to become better leaders in our school. And I think that, for me personally, I attended so many different conferences. The best were the ones where they had a lot of best practices and followed up with maybe literature, like books, something that can help us in everyday lives. Like for me personally in elementary school.
Mm-hmm. I know, David, what Heidi and I have done in the past is to ask speakers like what one downloadable or what resources, if they make sure that they have that for each one of the work breakout sessions and things like that, so that way people can have that readily, immediately available. And also, even if they don't get a chance to attend that workshop live, or they haven't had a chance or an opportunity to watch it asynchronously, if there's something like a walkthrough checklist or scripting to how to have those difficult conversations, and anything that is some type of PDF downloadable, or if they're willing to take their slide deck and what things are they willing to part with or do as a gift for people, I think that would be tremendously valuable.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Those tangible takeaways, I think, are very important. I always like that when I went to any conference, both as a teacher and as an administrator. I wanted those tangible takeaways that I could put into practice next day if I wanted to.
I'm coming here from a little bit of a different spot because I'm not an administrator, but I know Jen, and she had invited me into this space because we worked together as teachers. I suffered some pretty profound abuse at the hands of my administration, and I will say that it wasn't always just like one person. Like I've worked K through 12, rural, suburban, urban, international, and I would say the main theme was abuse of power in administration is the thing that really was the hardest. Not the kids, not the parents, not the kids. It was that idea that power was finite and that power was not shared. And I'm no longer in the game anymore. I mean, what happened to me really, truly broke me. And I've had to excuse myself because it became unhealthy for me. But I still very much care. And I know a lot of teachers still, and I'm still working closely with a lot of teachers. And I would have really liked to know that back then, that my principals were attending workshops where they were learning how to be vulnerable, how to be vulnerable people, how to hear feedback and criticism and not respond with retaliation. And I'm not saying that any of you do this, but I've experienced it enough to know that it is a theme. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. And I would love to know more about that. I never got to learn that, what was going on with my principals and why they were responding that way, because they weren't willing to be vulnerable and tell me what they were dealing with and the obstacles. And I think that it would be really cool to have a space for principals and educators who have been hurt by one another to talk to each other and learn a little bit more about those things, because we're all people, and at the end of the day, we're all struggling for the same reasons. And it has a lot to do with the things that we cannot control, and so that would be cool to see.
Awesome.
I think that would be new and innovative. So
Yeah.
much for that.
Thanks, Sarah, for that. And I'll give you a quick kind of response to what you just said, because this is obviously a much larger conversation and dialogue. So I don't want to minimize, what you just said, but I appreciate you sharing your experience with everyone here on Zoom, and then also who's on Facebook Live. And I agree with you that I've seen it as a theme. I'll acknowledge it. It happens. Those of us who are administrators, we can't say that it doesn't happen. I've seen it happen. I hope there is not a teacher out there that I worked with that feels like I did that. I very much tried not to. I can tell you, though, that on the flip side of it, I've had my name slandered all over the place. I've things about me posted on social media that weren't true. Very hurtful things as well said by teachers. So it goes both ways, but the principal just has more of that power seat, like you said. And I do know there's been retaliation, and there's things, and a good teacher like you who's like, I'm done. That's an unfortunate symptom of a larger problem that's out there. And it is an important dialogue, because the best schools, and we go back to culture, the best schools, it's had folks working together there. And there's almost like the blurred lines of leadership, like that shared leadership, it's kind of gets a little blurred. It could, because teacher leaders, administrators like myself, it's like we're all working together. But that vulnerability piece, I think, like what you said, very important. I can share a real quick story here. And I had teachers come up to me afterwards and say how kind of refreshing it was. And it was a personal situation that I was dealing with at a time. But I think I shared this at our last Facebook event, but my mom was a teacher for 34 years. That's probably why I got an education. And when I was a principal, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. And she battled cancer for 9 years. She had 3 main bouts of cancer, and she passed away. It'll be 5 years ago this summer. And I remember I got the phone call from my dad about an hour before a faculty meeting. I was an elementary school principal, and he told me that after she had a huge round of surgery and she was better, but then she went in for a check and they found it came back, basically. And I got a phone call from my dad, and he was telling me what happened, and I was obviously a mess. And I walked into my faculty meeting, like it didn't been like an hour, and my teachers could tell there was something wrong. I didn't want to cancel the meeting because we actually had some stuff we had to get through, but I went and I told everyone kind of what was happening, and I broke down and got very emotional. And the response I got back from my staff was amazing, because I was a human being to them. And they had experienced principals in the past that were not humans. Like, it was just very mechanical, but I was up there, I got very emotional. I said, this is what I'm dealing with. I'm really, really sorry. And well, some of us bonded over that. Teachers that I hadn't been able to bond with, they saw me a little differently, and then they shared some personal stories with me. And again, it's that culture piece. It's we're hearing this together, and a lot of principals, though, don't do that because they need to be seen as like, I'm in charge, like this is how I am, and that's unfortunate. The other issue, and this would be great for the panel, and then I'll stop talking about this because again, it's a larger conversation, is this notion that principals are stuck between a rock and a hard place a lot of time, between the district and their teachers. And I've been in situations where the district is telling me to do something, and I'm going, I don't want to do this. And my teacher's going, please don't do this. But I have a superintendent going, you will do this, because you don't need to work here tomorrow. I've dealt with that. And we get very, I could tell, there were times that I got very flustered and very upset and angry being put in that position. Who's going to bear the brunt of that? Well, it's the people that I'm on the staff with. Now, I say this theoretically, I hope I never did this, but I do remember many times feeling very stuck, and it's a very difficult place to be in, but it's something that we also don't share a lot about either, because again, we're in charge and we don't want to be seen as weak or, like we're being told what to do by someone else here. So, hey, I'm going to tell you to do it. And if you don't do it, I'm going to get on your case. That's not a good culture. But I think this is a great conversation for panel or something at our conference. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And, you know, like you said, it's about culture, but it takes this knowledge of social and emotional skills to be able to behave in that way and to become vulnerable enough. And that's some deep work, and that takes time. And then it takes a lot of time to build a school system into that culture. So, you know, the more we can open it up and normalize this, the better our school systems are going to be. And also we will then be able to provide these very skills for our students. So as they are growing up into adulthood, they now know how to navigate the hardships that life brings for human beings, because this is a human thing. You know, we all experience it on some level, but we don't all have the skills. We're not born with the skills, and a lot of us weren't taught the skills because our parents weren't taught them either, right? And so now that we have this knowledge, we're in a position where we can start teaching children these skills in school and have them grow up already with those skills, and that ultimately will change the world, which is phenomenal. All right, so we're closing up, and I see Jen is ready to tell us a few things right before we go.
Oh, well, what I was just, I was listening to these conversations, which are deeply personal, that we were just able to be brave and be vulnerable and have that here. I'm really looking forward to the conference. I think, you know, David, you created this, you said in 2016, it just kind of, you know, really took off, and now it's like, okay, well, what do we do with it? Like, so you created this entity, and it's getting really successful and large. And what I'm looking forward to is, you know, let's say down the road, you know, the principal's desk, people really have this clarity on what the ethos is, what are those non-negotiables. And like, I picture just like there's blue ribbon schools, and, you know, there's different markers for what it takes to apply to to get your blue ribbon. Well, you know, to get that principal's desk seal of approval, you know, how do you get rated by your community, by your students, by the faculty? You know, do people feel heard, and all of that type of stuff. So I'm looking forward to having this conference also not only bring clarity to individuals, but the community as well. And Sarah said bye. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think we're just beginning, and that's the kind of the exciting part here. I think we're just beginning about what this could be for all of us, and I'm excited to see where it goes as well. I've got a lot of different ideas, you know, and I'll be looking for folks within the group to help me create them, and again, to grow it and to make it something that is really special for everyone. So I think we're just at the beginning of this.
Yeah, so June 20th and 21st, mark your calendars for the conference. We will try to have one more Facebook Live in the earlier part of June before the conference heads out. And if you're interested in being a presenter, please go to the Principal's Desk website. It's in the chat. We can put it up again. There it is. We'd love to have you put in a proposal to present, and we're looking for up to 20-ish speakers. Right now we're about halfway there, so yes.
And I have a feeling too, if depending upon how they fit and create this nice story arc for the conference specifically, people that don't get selected for this, you know, I'm sure we're going to have future events, future guests, as this community and engagement opportunities continue to develop and grow.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for coming, everyone. It was great to see you here, and for joining the conversation. It's been a really good conversation.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Here's to the
Bye.
first week of
Thank
May.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Everyone.